Welcome back. The IEC in KwaZulu-Natal says the majority of voting stations in the province opened on time today for special votes. Earlier, the Commission held a briefing about the local government elections and the readiness of the province for Monday. Senior reporter Desan Thathia joins us now live for more. Desan, you've spoken to some residents who went out to cast their special votes. What did they have to say?
That's right, Heidi. You know, I was just thinking just before we started chatting that this is right up your alley because elections and voting day is all about numbers, isn't it? And let's start there. So in KwaZulu-Natal, we have about 4,900 odd voting stations. About 4,700 of those will be responsible for the special votes. There were 162,000 special votes that were approved in the province, and about just over half of those were home visits. So the IEC definitely has its hands full. Many of these voting stations, understandably, not as busy as they are expected to be on Monday because of that. But nevertheless, we've managed to visit a few. And for those that had come in, they were quite eager to get their votes done for whatever reason it may be. Some of them because they have other engagements on Monday, others that are elderly and would not be able to get here. Those ones would be visited by the electoral staff in the area. So let's listen into one of the interviews that I did with a resident that I met at a voting station in Glen Ashley.
Well, I'd like to see greater stability in KZN, particularly after the July problems that we had here. I don't think that our government actually, or the ruling party, took it seriously enough. And I don't think that the consequences of that looting, etc., has been sorted out correctly.
Desan, earlier the IEC gave an update on voting stations. What did they have to say? Has everything gone smoothly today?
Well, for the most part, I mentioned to you that there are there's a large number of voting stations that are operating for the purpose of special votes today. The issues for now relate mostly to the protests that took place in some of them. But one of the other significant issues was the delay in getting PPE materials to some of them. Now that, as the IEC has stressed, is absolutely imperative in making sure that a voting station can open, to make sure that the staff have all of the required PPE. So there was a delay because of 3 trucks that didn't make it to these voting stations on time, but that has subsequently been sorted out. Let's listen into what the acting electoral officer in the province, Ms. Ntombifuthi Masinga, had to say about that.
I can confirm that the majority of our voting stations open on time in the province. We had challenges in 3 districts where our trucks with the with the PPEs was delayed because of the weather, and it affected the Midlands region as well as the region around the King Cetshwayo district municipality, and particularly KZN 2 at 4, Eshowe, Melmoth, as well as in Nkandla. Unfortunately, in these times, the PPEs are as important as a ballot paper in a voting station. We cannot start operating unless we've got our PPEs in those voting stations. So we had to delay opening in those voting stations, which affected people that were approved for special votes, both at the voting stations as well as the home visits. And as a result, we opened late. But I can now safely confirm that all those PPEs subsequently arrived in those affected districts.
It's interesting, Desan, because we know that the IEC's Chief Electoral Officer just briefed, indicating that PPEs shouldn't be an issue because all 185,000 staff workers at these voting stations have been supplied. So hopefully that matter is addressed as soon as possible. Speak to us about high-risk stations.
Well, you know that it's been all eyes on KwaZulu-Natal, mostly because of the history here and with the recent tensions that we've seen that have led to both community protests as well as killings, political killings in the area. So, as you would imagine, the SAPS and as well as the IEC has been keeping its eyes on the province. Now, 109 voting stations have been listed as high risk. And the majority of those are in eThekwini. So that figure is the broader figure for KwaZulu-Natal. So most of them fall within eThekwini, 97 of them in fact. So what the IEC has done in those cases is that they increase the number of SAPS members that are at these identified hotspots. So far, it's been community protests that delayed the opening at one station. In Camperdown, it was a completely separate issue. It was an argument or disagreement over traditional leadership in that area. So there is a traditional leader there that is apparently not the one that's supposed to be there. So there's some community, the community is upset there over that issue. And as a result of that, they padlocked the gates and they left a threatening note on the gates of the voting station. But the SAP has dealt with that situation and they've been permanently stationed there to make sure nothing else happens. But to elaborate more on this, let's listen to Ms. Masinga again.
4,940 voting stations that we have in the province. 109 of them have been categorized at high risk. High risk means they are deploying no less than 6 members in that voting station from today up until the election day if it's necessary. They can also increase the numbers from the SAPS. The 119 is broken down into eThekwini municipality where we have 97 voting stations that are high risk. District 43, which is Herigwara districts, we have 10. Ilembe district, we have 5. Uku, we have 1. District 22, Umkungundlovu, we have 4. And District 23, the Midlands, we have 2. So that makes up the 109 voting stations that have been categorized as high risk in the province. We then have 815 that are medium risk, and the rest, which is 4,006, has been categorized as low risk. For low risk, they deploy 2 members only. For medium risk, they deploy 4. For high risk, they deploy a minimum of 6.
Thanks for that update. That was our senior reporter, Desan Thathia. And still to come on all angles, residents in well-off neighborhoods of Knysna are allegedly paying less on property taxes than residents living in other areas of the town. When we return, we chat to ENCA's Ronald Masinda, who's following that story for us.